everyone. Thank you for joining the latest Trees Around the Globe student research campaign. And we are at a milestone with this webinar because this is the final webinar for year 6 of the campaign. The title of this webinar, as you see here on the shareable, is The State of Trees, September 2024, the end of year 6, looking at change over time with tree height and land cover, with a special presentation from students at Primary School Dubovac, Karlovac, Croatia. And we have them standing online, ready ready to go soon. As you know, I'm going to go through some introductions, look over the agenda for today, and then we'll have some discussions a little later between all of us and Peter Falcon, Peter Nelson, and myself. And Peter Nelson will be showcasing some tools and some thoughts and everything. And then we're going to kind of end it with if anybody has any thoughts about the last year, for all of the last 6 years of the campaign. And I have some good news coming up here in a second. You may have seen it in an email. But first off, I want to put this slide up here because many of you probably remember Dr. Pornpun. She was the Globe Thailand Country Coordinator, and unfortunately, she passed away last month, the end of last month, end of August. So we want to issue our sincerest condolences from the campaign team to everyone in the Globe community, especially Globe Thailand and all the students and educators and researchers that have worked with her. She was a pioneer in a lot of what Globe has done, including Elementary Globe, writing lessons for Elementary Globe, and bringing the Globe program into so many schools in Thailand. So just wanted to remember her. It's a sad occasion. She was amazing at what she did. So, you know, we all offer our condolences on her passing to all her friends, family, and colleagues in the Globe program and throughout the world. So there's also a link down here, and I'll put that in the chat later. You can look at her information and what she's done. It's a nice write-up about her at this link on the Globe page. So it's very nice. And once again, we want to remember Dr. Pornpun. So thank you all for allowing me to put this up there because, you know, I've worked with her a bunch of times, you know, either at the annual meetings or the international meetings that we've had as well. And she was part of the campaign too. All right, a couple announcements here before I go through some metrics. Next Thursday, the 19th of September at noon, we are having the latest Globe Observer Connect event. It's a half-an-hour event. It's at noon p.m. Eastern Time, 1600 UTC and 1800 Central European Summertime. It's basically focused on a blog that I wrote with Marcus Euster, as you know him from Globe Switzerland, and he's an educator working with students and doing amazing things. This was called, the blog is called, and was just recently put out last week, A Call for Daily Observations of Fall Color to Support Student Research Campaigns. And I have a link here on the bottom all about it. But basically, the blog is about the upcoming September, well, I should say starting September through December, the phenology campaigns, the European phenology campaign and the North American phenology campaign. Even though they're in those two regions, we want everyone to take observations, specifically green down observations, repeat observations daily if possible during those months. I know it's really hard to take daily observations of green down, you know, literally every day for like 4 months, but it's really going to help out the phenology folks who are the campaigns that are working with students and educators to look at that data. And this is a really cool event. I'll be presenting. Hopefully Marcus will be able to be there. And I've also asked some folks from the European Phenology campaign to be there. So the first part of it is about 5 minutes of going over the blog, reminding everybody what it was about. And then it's an informal discussion for about 20, 25 minutes, asking questions to me, to anyone on the European Phenology campaign, if Marcus is there as well. So, you know, please put that in your calendar. Once again, I'll put that in the chat after I stop sharing. But yeah, this is really cool. We have these every month, and they've been really good. They're recorded, and you know, have some great discussions at these events.
And Brian, perfect timing. Marcus just joined us.
Oh, excellent, Marcus. Glad to have you here. All right. So you might have seen this through an email, but the Trees Around the Globe Student Research Campaign will return for a year 7. And year 7 begins on 1 October 2024, so the beginning of next month, and will run through 30 September 2025. And you can see here, I took these quotes. These are from emails that I received when I sent the message out. So hopefully the folks who are on here, I know John Moore is online right now. I know Ana Prieto's online right now. I'm not sure if Larissa's on right now, but these are nice little, congratulatory quotes from some folks who have been really, with the campaign from the beginning, and such a huge, they're in huge, important parts of the campaign, working with students, educators, and researchers alike. So I just wanted to show that. And the little penguin down there, that is Paige the Penguin. That is one of the ISET2 mission mascots. And as you know, this campaign has a lot to do with ISET2 and tree height. So I wanted to include Paige the Penguin with the party hat on. That's one that we actually created for ISET2's 5 years in space, which was last September. So we're closing in on 6 years. On the 15th of this month, ISET2 will be in orbit for 6 years, taking observations of height around the world. And we are closing in on our 2 trillionth laser shot. And that will happen most likely by the end of the year or the first part of January of 2025. So stay tuned. I want to mention one thing, that this campaign is going to be aligned around a lot, of course, of the science of tree height, land cover, greenings, but also to the upcoming IVSS theme, okay, which is going to be looking at 30 years of data, since the GLOBE program will be 30 years old in 2025. So we are going to align a lot of that to looking at the data over time, which we do a lot in this campaign. A lot of the tools that Peter Nelson shows you, that I show you, that Peter Falcon talks about. A lot of this stuff here is already part of the campaign. We're just going to dive deeper into it, specifically too with a lot of the NASA missions like NISAR and GeoCarb, and a lot of different missions that are really, providing now and will provide important data that aligns to the observations that the GLOBE program participants take when they're out in the field or using Globe Observer. All right, so we're excited about that. All right, I always show a quote in here. I should have had it at the beginning, but I always like this one too. He that plants trees loves others beside himself. Okay, sounds like a little bit of an anti-greed quote, but I just always kind of liked it. By Thomas Fuller, who was a British physician, preacher, and intellectual. So he was, he was a big nature guy. He did a lot of his, intellectual thought while just staring at trees. So I thought that was interesting. All right, here is the webinar agenda. I kind of went through a bunch of these things here. Oh Lord, I didn't change that potential announcement. No, it is an announcement because I wasn't sure when we get the word for year 7 of the campaign. So sorry, I missed that on the agenda. I've looked at it so many times, I just didn't see it when I looked over it again. Then after this, we're going to have the featured student presentation from the Primary School Dubovac, Karlovac, Croatia, all about the Karlovac Promenade. And I don't want to steal any of their thunder, so I will not go through that anymore. But I will say that presenters Josip, Luka, and Esma, and teacher Snježana from Croatia will be presenting this today. And the reasons why I wanted to present this is because this is a really cool presentation. I looked through the slides, and it's an extension of a award-winning 2024 IVSS program that brought them to the GLOBE annual meeting in New York at State University of New York in Fredonia back in July. And it was monitoring protection of Marmont Alley. So some of you may have seen that in the GLOBE database, or if you were at the annual meeting, you might have seen the poster or heard about that through them. So, but this Karlovac Promenade is basically an extension of this original IVSS project. So we're super excited to hear about this as well. And then we will talk a little bit about, I have just a couple slides I want to show you after that, about did ISET2 and GEDI measure these trees? And when I say these trees, I'm talking about the ones in the Karlovac Promenade. And you'll be surprised what you see. I was surprised, but I'll leave it at that. And then we'll talk a little bit about, then Peter Nelson will talk a little bit more about the GLOBE tree height land cover data, for Karlovac, and the online tools that we want everyone to be able to use, without being intimidated by them. That's what we've been trying to do with this, because there's lots and lots of data out there, right? If you've ever looked at NASA Worldview, it's a mind-blowing amount of data there. but we have to figure out how we can distill it the best we can. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have some final thoughts if anybody wants to share any final thoughts about the last 6 years of the campaign, and then we will adjourn. So last couple slides here before I pass it over to the featured presenters. We have this is as of this morning, actually as of about an hour ago, I direct your attention to year 6 at the bottom, and we are over 36,000 measurements from over 10,000 global sites for tree height, land cover, and greenings. Now, this also brings the total observations for the life of the campaign since we launched on September 15, 2018. And as you remember, ISET2 was launched into space at the same time. So that's why we started the campaign then. But we are over 205,000 observations from over 65,000 global sites. So we are active in 64 globe countries. Now, we'd always like to have more, but this is really good. I mean, that's, just about half of the globe countries have active participants. And when I say active, they're ones who attend the webinars, who go out with their students and take observations of tree height and land cover and, attach it basically to the campaign. And then lots of other things, people who present for us at these campaign webinars. So it's a really nice community. We have over 1,000 people on the listserv where you get the messages from me about the campaign. So this is pretty cool because we've had a lot of webinars and a lot of blogs. We have closing in on 300,000 views with the blogs, and super excited about that. Now, before I pass it over, I just want to remind everyone, this is on the GLOBE website, but IVSS 2025 is 30 years of GLOBE, understanding the past, present, and future. So if you you can just go to the GLOBE page, and then there'll be a link to IVSS. But here is just some dates here. September 16th is actually next week, so there's going to be a general IVSS webinar. But then also you can see all the dates down here, like what happens, when things will be due, when there's some webinars, when you can submit the projects, and all of this. So just wanted to showcase this for you. And once again, I can put that in the chat after I pass it over to the speakers today. So without further ado, we're going to go to our featured presentation, the Karlovac Promenade. And this is going to be, as I mentioned, this is from students in Croatia, the Dubovac school in talking about Karlovac Promenade. And we have presenters, and I grabbed this picture. I don't remember where I grabbed this picture, but I know not all the presenters are on here. But Snježana is on here as well, and just a couple pictures here to go with it. So we're excited to hear this, and please, if you have any questions, we'll have Peter Falcon will lead a Q&A session, question and answer session at the end of the presentation, but you can also put it in the chat as well, and then Peter will go through that and ask that of the speakers. So let me go ahead and stop sharing, and I will pass it over to the amazing students and the Karlovac Promenade. So there you go. Yep, that looks fine. I know you can't get it in the presenter mode, but that'll be fine because we can read that.
Can you see us switching the slides?
Yes.
All right. We're ready.
Okay then. Hello, we're students from the Dubovac Primary School. I'm Esma. Our project is called Karlovac Promenade. Karlovac Promenade is located on the west side of the Karlovac Star. It is a central row of wild chestnut trees with a few linden trees. It is an area where city events are held and where citizens gather to enjoy the greenery of the city. On the manifestation, Karlovac Carousel, in May 2023, our GLOBE students held a biometry workshop on the promenade, as you can see in the pictures. Because of student interest, the workshop became a research project of biometry for all 190 trees on the promenade. The research project started in September 2023. These were our research questions. How old are the trees in the Karlovac Promenade, and when were they planted? How much carbon did the trees in the Karlovac Promenade store? How much CO2 did the trees in the Karlovac Promenade absorb? In 2022, we presented our project Marmont Alley, so we asked ourselves, is there more absorbed CO2 and stored carbon in the trees in the Karlovac Promenade or in the trees in the Marmont Alley? Then the GLOBE group of students searched the database on the EarthMap satellite platform. In the picture, you can see that the amount of biomass in the Karlovac Promenade, marked with yellow line, is up to 50 tons per hectare. These were our assumptions. The trees on the promenade absorb huge amounts of CO2 and they contain more stored carbon. All the trees on the Karlovac Promenade are younger than 125 years because old and died get regularly removed. There is more absorbed CO2 and stored carbon in the promenade than in the Marmont Alley because the promenade in total contains 190 trees, whereas the Marmont Alley contains 102 plant trees. In October 2023, biometric measurements were performed on all 190 trees in the promenade, as you can see in the pictures. According to GLOBE protocols, we measured tree girth, tree height, location with GLOBE observer, and tree age. The measured values can be read in the GLOBE database, as you can see the pictures. After working in the field, the following values were calculated in the classroom: chest diameter, fresh tree biomass, dry tree biomass, stored carbon, and absorbed carbon dioxide. And these are our mathematical formulas for calculation.
Tree diameter. We determined three intervals. Diameters 1 to 50 centimeters, 51 to 100 centimeters, and 101 to 150 centimeters. The second column shows the age interval of the tree depending on the diameter. In the third column, we see that the most trees are 62.5 years old, that 66 trees are from 63 to 100 years and 25 years old, and that only 4 trees are older than 125 years. In the interval from 63 to 125 years, there are approximately 2 times fewer trees than in the interval from 1 to 62.5 years of age, but approximately 4 times more carbon was stored in them. The 4 times more carbon dioxide was absorbed. There are only 4 trees with a diameter greater than 100 centimeters, but they contain only 30% less carbon than all 120 trees with a diameter of 1 to 50 centimeters. The total carbon stored is approximately more than 76 tons, and the total mass of absorbed carbon dioxide is 280 tons. In this table, we have shown a comparison of 3 horse chestnut trees of different ages. We compared their girth, diameter, height, fresh biomass, dry biomass, stored carbon, and absorbed carbon dioxide. It can be seen that as the diameter increases, so does the biomass, and especially the values of stored carbon and absorbed carbon dioxide increase strongly. This shows us the importance of all trees, which are great carbon stores. In this diagram, we have shown the dependence of absorbed carbon dioxide on the breast diameter of the tree. Each green point is a stable one, and the green line shows a growing trend. We can see that the larger the diameter, the faster the absorbed carbon dioxide That is, the older trees absorb the largest amount of carbon dioxide.
Lastly, we compared Marmont Alley and the in this upper table, you can see that we compared the alley on the promenade, and we can see that the number of trees in the alley is 102, and the number of trees in the Karlovac Promenade is 190. We can also see that the total carbon storage is larger in the Marmont Alley than in the Karlovac Promenade, and that there is more absorbed CO2 in the Marmont Alley than in the Karlovac Promenade. In this lower table, we compared two different trees from two different species, one plane tree and one wild chestnut tree of the same age and similar circumferences, and also the similar height. And you can see that there's a larger amount of stored carbon in the plane tree, and there is more absorbed CO2 in the plane tree than in the wild chestnut tree. And these are our discussion and conclusions. The trees on the promenade absorbed more than 280 tons of CO2, and they contain more than 76 tons of stored carbon. 2% of trees is older than 125 years. The trees in the Marmont Alley contain more stored carbon, which is more than 85 tons, and they absorbed more CO2, which is more than 297 tons, than the trees in the promenade. Differences in the measured values are possible because the annual growth of the plane tree is 2.75 centimeters per year, and for the wild chestnut and some linden trees, an average annual growth of 2.5 centimeters per year, which was taken as a number because we couldn't find any other one. And then on this lower table, we actually listed out all the trees by their ages. The first one was 262.5 years, and we can see that the amount of those trees are approximately the same in the promenade and in the Marmont Alley. Then we have the one from 63 to 125 years, and we can see that there are more of these trees in the promenade than in the Marmont Alley. But the trees that are older than 125 years, we have lots more of them in the Marmont Alley than in the promenade. And actually, these trees contribute to the larger numbers of stored carbon and absorbed CO2 in the Marmont Alley. The city of Karlovac was built in 1579 as a strategical military city for the purpose of the defense against the Ottoman Empire, on the concept of a regular hexagon in the shape of a six-armed star. On the west side of the Karlovac star, the tree line of the town walkway, the promenade, shaped during 1861, on the initiative of Count Maximilian Catinelli, has been preserved till this day. In 1886, on the initiative of Therese Reiner, from the Society for City Beautification, was founded. We also constructed globe and stem posters, which you can see on the left, and we also constructed a globe and history posters, which you can see on the right. And we were actually the first school to connect globe with history. The maintenance and care of alleys is of great importance for the city and citizens because Karlovac is the city of parks, so we plan to present this project to the local community. And the Karlovac Promenade is our place of city meetings and manifestations, tourist visits, welcomes, and send-offs. These are our sources, and thank you for your attention.
Great job, guys. I was having difficulty unmuting and turning on my camera. First off, good to see you guys again. Yeah, great job. There's some comments in the chat box. Somebody wrote excellent work. I do have a couple of questions for you guys. One of them is, how are we able to determine the age of the trees?
The age of the trees were determined by dividing the circumference with 2.5, which we took that as a number from the literature, and that's how we got the age of the trees.
And similarly with the amount of carbon that removed from the tree? Did you get that from somewhere as well?
Yeah, we also pulled the formulas.
Gotcha. And was the was the research what you expected, like your results?
No, it was definitely not what we expected. We expected to find more stored carbon and more absorbed CO2 in the promenade because there were a lot more trees than in the Marmont Alley. But we realized that these older trees that the Marmont Alley has were actually more important than the number of trees itself.
Gotcha. And are the trees still in good condition? Are they well taken care of?
Yeah, they are.
Excellent. Yeah. One other question. Let me see what I wrote down here. I saw your presentations before. I loved it. I saw your IVSS project. Remember you guys in your poster presentation in July. But I have to ask again, 190 trees. How many team members did you have doing that, and how long did that take?
Yeah, that took a while. It was a couple of months, yeah, and there were more than 50, 60 students across the entire school that did these projects with us.
Gotcha. And do you plan on continuing the research, or do you plan on doing other stuff next time?
Oh yeah, we actually plan to do the research on another promenade, which is really close to this one that we measured over here, which is even larger than this one. So that will be our next research project.
Wow, it's a lot more tree counting.
Yeah.
I have a quick question, Peter. Can I ask a
question?
So, yeah, great work. So thank you so much. I love that, you had success with your IVSS project and you decided, hey, we have great data. Let's go do more of it at another location, a bigger location. So that's great. Have you thought of, or thought of taking that information to any like local leaders, environmental folks to show them the data that you're doing, and then announcing to them, hey, in the future, we're going to be going to this site and doing the same thing. So we're getting this really good inventory of tree height and carbon, which is super important for everyone across the planet. Have you taken this to anyone like in the city, like, I don't know, city official or environmental group or whatever in Croatia?
Yeah, we always take our projects there and we present them to the local community. We go to a lot of different places and we did take this project there too.
Man, you guys are role models for what the GLOBE projects need to be and what you need to do with it. Because we love that with the campaign, we really focus on, anybody can take the data, but it's a different skill to analyze the data, and it's even a more advanced skill to know who to talk to and talk to them well about what you've done. And I think just your presentation today and seeing the slides and hearing you talk, I see that you're well versed in all of those. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Peter,
Yeah.
is there anything else?
I agree with Brian. I mean, it's one thing to take measurements, but you took it to the next step by being activists and going to your city officials and saying, hey, this is something we really need to discuss and address. So that's awesome. There's a question in the chat box I want to ask. It's from Marcus. He asks, how did you get the data of the 3 chestnut trees you compared, e.g. green plus dry weight?
Yeah, so we got the data for the 3 chestnut trees. Basically, yeah, from the literature, and we compared it. So yeah, there was a bunch of different methods that we used, and there weren't a lot of sources where we could pull stuff from. So we just basically compared and took like one number that was approximate to everything.
Gotcha. Okay. He actually has a couple questions. I'm just going to ask him once again. He also asked, the annual growth of your trees, did you make measurements or were there assumptions?
So the annual growth, one was pulled from the literature and another one was approximate because there weren't any, there weren't really any numbers listed anywhere for that. So we just took the approximation of lots of different sources.
Gotcha. Okay. And then last question, how did you find the factors for the calculation of the fresh tree biomass?
Yeah, we just pulled everything from the literature, basically. We always have this sort of same formulas because we already use these formulas, so we just pulled that from there.
Excellent. Okay. Oh,
I love that you're looking at literature. That's awesome. Whether it be you know, a real paper form, or you know, online. That's good, because you know, I know a lot of the you know, professional reviewed papers and publications. A lot of them are very hard to go through. I happened to be at a lecture about a month ago, and you know, I've been at NASA for 25, just about 25 years. Peter's got me by a couple years, but yeah, so I sat there for an hour listening to a presentation, and it was really well spoken and a great presentation. But I walked away saying, "What the heck did that guy just talk about?" And I listened to it for the last hour, and then I had to go and I went and looked through literature on this topic to find out, and I figured it out. I mean, it's nothing to do with earth science. It was a lot about astrophysics and stuff, and just some really precise things. But you know, I mention this because that's great that you're going in and looking at literature, whether it's online or physical copy. So that's great. I mean, that's what scientists do. I mean, they look at, see what their colleagues are presenting, what their colleagues are researching, and then how they can potentially collaborate with them, as you guys do with each other in your school, but then also collaboration with, you know, other students from other GLOBE countries around the world. So it's all part of this amazing, you know, science research process that some of us don't think about, but there's little variables everywhere that pop in.
Thank you.
yeah, that's all the questions in chat, guys. Great job. Looking forward to seeing your next project as well, because like I said, I remember your IVSS project, and then seeing you guys in July, and then seeing you in the webinar. Cannot get enough of you guys' work. So great job.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Anything else for the students, or even their teacher who is there? Snježana is there. So is there any questions? Any more questions? Anyone want to mute and sing songs of praise to them for what they've done? Oh, go ahead, Allison. I see your hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for presenting. I just want to echo Peter's kudos to y'all. This is a great presentation and representation of your work. I'm wondering, I do have a question about sort of the logistics. Did you take these measurements during class time, or did you spend a lot of time like outside of class working on this? I'm just wondering, maybe this is a question for you and your teacher, how much of your actual like school time was spent making the measurements?
Yeah, so we went during class with our teacher because we didn't really have time outside of class, and that was really the whole time where we can get together and just go and take the measurements.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you for that, Allison. Anyone else? Everybody's shy today. But yeah, great questions in the chat, so that's great. All right, give about 10 more seconds if anybody wants to chime in or say anything. All right, well, thank you again, students, for presenting today. Thank you especially to teacher Snježana, and then students Joseph, Luca, and Esma. So thank you so much for presenting, and we, hopefully, we can bring you back at some point in year 7 of the campaign, and to see what the awesome things you've been doing as you're extending from the Marmont Alley to the Karlovac Promenade to the next phase of and location of where you're going to measure, do some observation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to jump back to my slides right now because I want to show you a couple things. They're relevant to what we're doing here. Slide. Peter, look okay?
Yep, looks good.
All right. So here's the question. Did ICED2 and GEDI measure the trees? As you know, ICED2 uses an onboard laser system called Atlas. You may not know Atlas. Atlas stands for Advanced Topographic Laser Altimeter System, Atlas for short. And that's the instrument on the ICESat-2 satellite that sends the laser pulses out towards the ground, which then bounce off and get collected back in the satellite's telescope. So with that said, ICESat-2 measures, as you know, height. And one of the things it measures is tree height around the world. And GEDI is a global ecosystems dynamics investigation, and it's an instrument on the International Space Station that focuses just on measuring forest height and tree height and figuring out carbon storage from those numbers and carbon numbers like you've done in your research, students. But it's just this is an instrument that only focuses on looking at the tree height between 56 degrees north and 56 degrees south latitude. And the crazy thing about these two missions are they have measured literally hundreds of billions of trees, but there are just over 3 trillion known trees on the planet, and they have not, of course, measured all of them. And so the question I decided to think of is, did ICESat-2 and GEDI measure these trees in Karlovac Promenade? And here, just image here showing you out of Croatia with the Karlovac Promenade. The star is covering it there. And you're going to see these lines here. And I'll show you that. I'm going to go off onto my browser then and show you a couple things and how I got these. Okay. Now, before I do that, I'm going to mention that Peter Nelson cannot be here. He got stuck at his university in another project. So the crux of what he was going to do, we're going to pass that on till next month, the first webinar for year 7. But I'm going to cover some of that stuff today. But we most likely won't be an hour and a half today, which I know some of you are happy about. We tend to go long, sometimes 2 hours. But that's when we have massive things we want to show you. But we're kind of bringing this end of the year 6 today. But okay, back to this. So did ICESat-2 measure these trees? All right. Now I zoomed in a little bit further, and here we have closer showing the ICESat orbit tracks. This is basically the closest that ICESat-2 got to Karlovac Promenade. It's close, I'd say, a couple of kilometers away. And what you're seeing here in these dots, these are the ICESat-2 photons that measure that. These are the photons where they hit on the Earth and then came back to the satellite, and we got a height from that location. But you can see here, no, but that's ICESat-2. Okay, so I zoomed in a little further. So actually, this was the center of the closest orbit track, and you can see it's a little off from what you just saw, but you can see it did not run through that tree location. It did measure trees. You can see it running through trees basically northwest of Karlovac Promenade, but then also, southwest as well, but not directly over that. So that is a great reason why we need ground-based observations from GLOBE, from students like you who've taken these over 193 tree height observations here. Okay, that's a huge number. You're ahead of ICESat-2, 193 to 0. So you're ahead of a super advanced satellite. You've measured more trees in this area than the satellite did. And that's all because it's not hitting that same spot where the Karlovac Promenade is, but it doesn't mean it won't. It means that, there could be clouds in the sky. It might have been pointing, satellite might have been off pointing a little bit at this time. I don't know. I don't know that answer, but all I know is that. So now, did GEDI measure this? And kind of. So if you look here on the left, that's ICESat-2. So that's a no. Okay, you see that right there. And then what I did was I went and looked at some other data. I'm going to show you that on the browser. But the specific one, looking at this forest canopy height from 2000 canopy height to 2020, and you can see that it did not. You can see it has 0 meters and 0 meters, so no trees are measured. But remember, as Peter Nelson likes to say often, that no data is actually good data, because then there's a location there that needs these ground-based observations, right? So GLOBE is awesome to do, whether you're doing the GLOBE Observer tree height or you're using the the old school handheld clinometer to do it, or some people actually have like digital ones that they've used, like foresters used. People in the forestry industry use those as well. But then at the bottom here we have this little thing. This is a global forest height, the GEDI tree height. This is from 2019. Okay, you can see it. I said yes and no because some of it was measured, some of it wasn't. But this goes back to also what Peter Nelson mentions, that is the data right? And as you can see here, you can see these little like blocks, little like light green blocks above the yes here in this picture. When you scroll over those, they say they're about 4 meters, but that doesn't really match up. That's an average in that spot, in that pixel. But that doesn't really match up with what you measured, did it? And I'm tending to believe your data first, because you measure those individual trees one by one, and this, we really can't tell what exact trees it measured in that area. I know there's a lot of trees to the northwest of the Karlovac Promenade that weren't measured. You can see this is like the southern part of it where they were measured. They might be smaller there, but it does not give a full picture of the tree height in the promenade completely. So once again, this is why this is where we have this good push for looking at, okay, really looking at the importance of taking the ground-based GLOBE data, because like I said, you're ahead of ISET 2, 193 to 0. So awesome job there. So wanted to show you this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go back here to this one here, the global forest canopy height. And can you see that, Peter? Is that okay on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, and then I'm going to open up an altimetry. And I want to show you this because I know Peter Nelson has showed this tool often, but I want to show you this here because it's kind of fun to use. So I'm going to go and I'm just going to go back and yeah. Let's go for it. Yeah, here it is. So I'm just gonna get rid of this. I'm gonna zoom out here pretty far. But what you can do here is, and let me just pop this in the chat. Oh, I forgot to pop those other things in the chat. Sorry about that. But I'm gonna pop this in the chat right now. This is a global forest canopy height, and hopefully this gets updated soon. This isn't our product. This is through a Google Earth Engines, and it's a combination of some scientists that are working on this. But hopefully this will be updated soon. But what you can do is you can just put in wherever you want. So I'm going to do the Karlovac, Croatia, and then it'll center it. It'll zoom in to a certain point. Okay, and then I'm going to go zoom into where this, oops, sorry about that, where this, the promenade is. So we're going to put it in the center. And then up here at layers, I'm going to hit, now there's two things you can choose, forest canopy height boreal. That's not what you want. That is, the boreal forest is in the northern hemisphere, close, around the Arctic Circle, like right in there, like parts of Canada and into Russia and all those places. So you don't want that. You won't get any data there of that data here. You want the forest canopy height. So if I click on that, it'll open a layer, and it's gonna be a lot happening at this time. So here we go. So it's filling in all the GEDI instrument data that came in. As you can see, now we're back to these little grids, these little pixels here. But if you roll over it here, you can see, if I click on it, if you want to look here to the bottom right, which says click for forest canopy height value, if you click on it, this one gives you latitude and longitude of where I clicked, and then it says the average tree height here is 3 meters. That's pretty tiny, okay? Here as well, 3 meters. Here they get a little bigger at 4 meters. Here they get a little bigger at 5 meters, 4 meters, and then all the way here. So my issue is that it hasn't measured anything. Sorry about that. Hasn't measured anything here, next to these buildings on the northwest side of the promenade. Okay, there's no trees. You can see there's no tree height observation measurements there, but you can see here there are a lot of trees there, and I know a lot of you probably measured those trees. So this is, once again, another push for this as well. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Open Altimetry, and I will put that in the chat as well. I'll do the direct ISET 2 one and put that in the chat. All right, so when you go in here, what you're going to see, I'm not sure why the calendar isn't showing the most recent date. I'm not sure why it's all the way back in 2019. But the most recent date for the data is May 10th of 2024. So it caught up a little bit. There's a little bit of data latency here. But what you can do here is you can go to this underneath the search, the drag and zoom, the magnifying glass. There's this arrow. And then you can go in here and go to, I'm going to go just to Croatia. All right. So then it'll basically put the center of Croatia on the map. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see. And what you're seeing here are all ICET2 orbit paths. Okay. As I should have mentioned, the one that you just saw, the global forest canopy, that was GEDI data from the International Space Station. This is ICET2 data. There's a lot more data because we fire off a lot more photons all the time, and we cover more of the planet than GEDI does. GEDI does amazing things. It gets more data in the mid-latitudes than we get. But this is, this is global, this one here. So I'm not sure. Probably like, yeah, it'll. I don't know if that is it or not. We'll see. That's a little tricky here. But what I wanted to show you here is that you can go anywhere on the map. Okay, you can go anywhere here. So I'm just going to stay with Croatia here. But if you go anywhere on this map, it's kind of interesting because you can, let's say, I'm just going to pick a random spot here. Let me just zoom in here where there's lots of trees. And this is something you can do when to see if ICET2 actually measured trees in your area. See, this is over some mountains and things, so this is really cool. So I'm going to click on one of these orbits. And once it, what will happen here is that, well, it's still rendering a little bit. Okay, so if you click on it, if you left click on it, it'll tell you when ICET2 was the closest to this point where you're measuring. So I'm just going to randomly choose one here. Let's try maybe July 20th of last year. You have to wait a second for the photons to pop up. If not, they could be off screen. So then this isn't a perfect online tool because it shows a lot of, it doesn't always show all the photons as quickly as you want. But we're going to, we're going to go zoom into this and just grab a couple of these here. So all you do here is, hopefully that'll pop back up. Oh, maybe it wants me to do this again. Sorry about that. I'll do this one here. There's a lot of bugs off and on in here where the photons are there, and then they go away. All right, it might be a rendering issue. People might be on it. All right, I'm going to go up here and hit select a region, and I'm going to outline these photons. Okay, just to show you what the height elevation looks like on here. So let me hit view elevation profile. There's a delay. So let me do these. Let me do these here. A little bit of a delay happened here. Sorry about that. That's out of my control. But I'm going to just cover these and hit view elevation profile. Another window will pop up. And the data is going to load up. It's probably going to take a little bit to load up because there's lots of data, lots of photons in that selection that I did. All right, so there we get the photons that I highlighted. You can see the mountains here. You can just see the structure and the elevation of the mountains. But then also what's cool is that here is where the trees were measured. So you can scroll over these and it'll tell you what the average height of the trees are for that photon. So we have, we go all the way from 26 meters, all the way up to where 86 meters. Oh, that's tall. That's pretty high. Okay, that's a tall one. But that could be also a tree on the top of a mountain or hill or something like that. Don't know until we look at it directly. You can see here the elevations and the tree heights are pretty big. Okay, so I just wanted to showcase that as well. So you can use either one of those tools that I put in the chat. I know some of you have used those before. I know Anna and I believe Marcus has used those before, at least one of those. But we've been focusing on that for a while. But unfortunately, I was hoping that ICET2 or GEDI would have measured these trees directly, but that you measured at in the Karlovac Promenade, but they did not. So, I apologize for that, but that's out of my control what the satellite's going to do and what the instrument's going to do. All right, so let me stop sharing and come back and see if there's any questions or anything. So I mentioned Peter's going to, and then we'll talk a little bit about in the last remaining maybe 5-10 minutes about the last 6 years if anybody wants to share anything. And also, we can do a quick brainstorming session. What you'd like to see in year 7? As I mentioned, we are focusing a lot on the IVSS, 30 years of it, and looking at the data over 30 years. We're going to focus on a lot of the missions as well. Some of the missions like ISAT 2, GEDI, Landsat 7, 8, and 9. There's Landsat Next, but that's not going to be launched until around 2030. But then we also want to look at some of the newer missions like NISAR and GeoCarb. So a lot of different missions that are on the horizon. We want to include, and we're going to bring in some experts, some NASA scientists, whether they be civil servant or contractor scientists, ones who work directly on these missions, to talk about it and reintroduce, or to some introduce the science to you of these missions and why it aligns to the Trees Around the Globe Student Research Campaign. So let me pause there for a second. As Peter mentioned in the chat, any questions? Sorry, I'm not as good a presenter as Peter Nelson is with online tools, because he's a cartographer. He teaches cartography at the university, at Oregon State University. So he knows a lot about, using the online tools because he uses them every day. Okay. I use specific ones like the Global Forest Canopy Height and the Open Altimetry, but he uses a lot more like Collect Earth. He uses Google Earth Engine. He's presented at the Google booth at several conferences. So, but as you know, he'll be back in our October webinar.
Brian, there are some questions in the chat box. Dan asks, is there any relationship between the height and surface temperature? Or
yes. Well, I guess there could be. I mean, it's hard to. I'm actually talking to some folks later on this week, Tracy Ostrom and some colleagues, about that, because they're looking at the tree height observations and seeing, looking at surface temperatures near those trees, whether they be in the sunny part next to a tree or in the shade, that the tree casts on the ground. But yeah, there could be a relationship. I mean, just think of it, for instance, think of in the city, you have urban tree inventory where you have trees that sit next to a building. Okay. Well, the surface temperature in the city is usually warmer. But if there's an area where, for a long part of the day, where the tree might not see any sunlight, where the ground's going to be, basically the tree is in the shadow of a building. And then also that whole sidewalk area or area outside of the building is also in a shaded area. And that also gives less sunlight during the day for a tree to grow. So there is a relationship. And, I don't know, it's not really a one-on-one relationship, but there is. And I did see some studies, and I don't remember from who. It might have been folks at the European Space Agency who were, looking at tree shade as well. So, yeah, that's a great question. And I know maybe I'll ping Peter about that, because Peter has done that in his area around the campus. Because I remember when he's showing you, for instance, the moon tree that is on the Oregon State University campus in Corvallis, Oregon. He likes to show in some of the images that Google has, you can see the shade of the tree. So basically, you can tell when the picture was taken based upon the sun's angle, but then also surface temperature measurements when it's in a shaded area versus in full sunlight. There's a difference. Yeah.
Yep. Another question from Anna. She asks, if I have tree height measurements on the ground and those I can obtain from the Open Altimetry, what should I relate them to?
Oh, so I guess what you're asking, if they're not on Open Altimetry, how to compare the tree height observations. And as of, if you can't find Open Altimetry, or like from the Global Forest Canopy Height, I mean, that's where it becomes tricky. I mean, that may be that you have the only tree height data, for those trees. I mean, maybe someone else has measured them in, your location, but I'm assuming probably not, but maybe students have. But then also, you can check in the database to see, if you've taken multiple observations of those trees in your location, you can compare them, as they're growing through the years. But if we don't have the direct satellite observations of those tree heights, then honestly, there's not much to compare it to. And that's one of the downfalls of it. And that's another reason why we need the ground-based observations, because the satellites won't see everything. But that's a great question, and it's kind of a it's a idea, Anna, that it's kind of a what we call a thorn in my side, like, oh, why hasn't the satellites or the instruments, why hasn't GEDI or ISAT-2 measured these trees yet? And we get that from a lot of the scientists. They go out in the field and take observations, and then they're like, oh no, the satellites, we don't even have any space-based observations from these. I'm not saying the space-based, like the instruments or the satellites are not doing their job. It's just, there's frequently places where we want to do the ground-based measurements like you've done, and then compare them to the space-based data, but sometimes it's just not there. A lot of it is there, but as you know, the Earth's a huge place, and we have these satellites flying over so fast all the time. It's just not everything is taken. So we don't have observations for everywhere. And then also, as you know, with ISAT-2 and GEDI, if the clouds are too thick, the laser pulses, the photons can't penetrate these clouds. So we're not going to get any data at that location when it's flying over, when the satellite's over a thick cloud layer. That's just part of how light works and how the atmosphere works. We can't control that. But that's a great question. And, hopefully, we'll see a lot more observations in your location, Anna, and everyone else's, over the next, decade. If ISAT-2, we just found out, if everything stays working well, if the lasers, keep firing, no problem, that, we have, years, I think up into the 2030s. And I know Valerie is my colleague with ISAT-2. She's the ISAT-2 outreach and communications lead. But I believe it's like 2038 or something that the satellite has enough fuel on board and power and everything, just as long as the lasers continue to work, because lasers will eventually die out. We don't have control of that either. And we can't fly up there to fix it. So, but yeah, so we have lots of data coming, fingers crossed, at the satellite and instrument. I'm not sure how long GEDI is going to be in operation. That I just don't have that information. But ISAT-2 for a long time, for sure. All right. Were there any other ones, Peter?
I don't see any in the chat. I think that's it.
All right.
I think.
All right. Now.
Geez, thanks. Walking through those.
Yep. Yeah. And we'll be doing a lot more of those tools in the next year as well, because that's one of the things. Because a lot of those tools do showcase, and other ones like NASA Worldview as well, they do showcase data from the last 30 years. I mean, that Open Altimetry does not. Open Altimetry has ISAT-2 data, which comes back to 2018. And then ISAT-1 data doesn't go back 30 years. It's close, because ISAT-1 basically was 2003 to 2009. So we have data, 21 years ago, starting from ISAT-1. So we're excited to see that. But we definitely want more data. And Sabrina, thank you for being here. Take care and see you next time. So let's transition over to, does anybody want to have any thoughts about the last 6 years of the campaign, or things you'd like to see in year 7 of the campaign? Like I said, as I mentioned, we're aligning it to, we've worked with the GLOBE Implementation Office folks, as well as, the NASA Program Office about, aligning to the 30 years of GLOBE data. And then on our end we have that data, and we have the, 30 plus years of NASA data for land cover, tree height, and all these things. So we're going to be focusing a lot on the science and the data analysis, and trying to find the best space-based observations to help out the students who are doing IVSS projects, with that theme of 30 years of looking at the past, present, and future of GLOBE data. So feel free to put anything in the chat, or you can unmute. If we don't have any takers on that, it will be a little bit of an early dismissal today from the webinar. Feel free to unmute if you like. While I'm thinking of it, while you're thinking about that, I'm going to put the links to the things that I mentioned earlier, just so we have those on here, because I will include all of them on the website, on the webinar page. All right, everybody must be shy today. I know it's at a different time.
I would say, Brian, for me, that one year we did a really nice student-based webinar where students came in and they presented on their research.
That 5-hour one that we did.
Much for us, but I thought it was really beneficial for the students, and it's always great to hear, what they're working on, and I think it encourages them with their projects as well. So, if we bandwidth, love to do it again.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because we brought students, presenters from, we might have had all 6 GLOBE regions. I don't remember. I have to go back and think. I think it's at least 5. I'm pretty sure we had all the GLOBE regions in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do have a question in the chat from Mohammed. He says he wishes to begin collecting data for the first time, and he just share any guidelines for him.
Well, I guess it depends upon how you're going to collect are you going to be collecting, Mohammed, will you be collecting, if you do tree height and land cover data, you can do that the traditional GLOBE way, or you can do that with the GLOBE Observer as well. So, it all depends how you're going to do it. If you do tree height the traditional way without the GLOBE Observer through the GLOBE program, it's basically one of the activities in the biometry protocol. And that is done with using a handheld clinometer to figure out the angles you're looking at the tree, which then in turn can give you the height. The same thing happens with the GLOBE Observer. It's just all the mathematics, the trigonometry is already put in. It has been added to the device, to the app in the tool, that you don't have to do all the calculations. The app will do it for you. Land cover, it's kind of the same thing. You can do a land cover traditionally, where you create the transect on the ground, and you observe things in that transect. But then also on the GLOBE Observer land cover tool, if you download that, if you use the land cover tool, you're going to just be kind of doing that, but you're going to be standing in a central point and taking pictures north, south, east, and west, and then also up and down photos. So my guidance to you is to start. I'd start with the GLOBE Observer, and if you want to, somehow, show people or students, how to do it the traditional way, feel free. You can contact us for that as well. We've done that. We've done trainings in that. Peter Falcon, Peter Nelson, and I have done, trainings in that. We've guided people in different countries, hands-on, live, doing observations like that. Peter Falcon and I were in Estonia for the GLOBE Estonia regional meeting expedition in August of 2022, and we were out there in the field taking observations of land cover, tree height. I know Peter had clouds and did a lot of those things. So so I mean, I would suggest doing that first, looking at the GLOBE Observer, downloading that if you haven't already. You just find that at the App Store or the the Apple Store, and go from there. And you can contact us at any time regarding that. And can you remind me, what country are you from, Mohammed? Okay, I put that the link you just see in the chat now. That's the one for the Globe Observer Connect event next Thursday. I think I have one more link here that I wanted to share. Maybe I didn't. Oh yeah. This is the sorry about that. This is the IVSS page on Globe. All right. Yep. Thank you. Sorry, I missed that. Yeah. Thanks, Peter, for responding to Snježana and students. Oh, they're getting kicked out of the school building. Okay, Peter, anything from you before we adjourn? And please, I should also mention, sorry, Peter. If anybody has any like suggestions or comments, concerns, questions about year 7 of the campaign, feel free to reach out to us. We always, all of us, all 3 of us on the campaign, Peter Falcon, Peter Nelson, and myself, that we'll get back to you ASAP with some. And if we don't have an answer for you, we will get someone who can give you an answer. We have a lot of contacts inside and outside of NASA, inside and outside of Globe. So yeah, because Peter's been with how many years with NASA and JPL, Peter?
31.
31. Holy cow. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Tell me a quick story though. You've only had 2 jobs, right?
Yeah, working at McDonald's and working at JPL at NASA.
Yeah, yeah, awesome.
I can either make you a Big Mac or talk to you about earth science. Like the only 2 things I can do in life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was a high school science teacher right out of graduate school before coming to NASA. So I taught high school for 4 years and then came to NASA in 2001. So Peter has a couple of years on me. So I never worked at McDonald's though. I did work at a department store growing up. All right, we digressed a little bit there. So anybody have any parting thoughts for this? And when I hit close, this will officially be the ending of the last webinar for year 6. And stay tuned for an announcement for the year 7 webinar for October. Actually, our team is meeting this week to talk about that. So you'll get an invite probably by the end of the week or first thing next week.
I just want to say, Brian, if it wasn't for everyone that joins us over the past 6 years, we would not have a 7th year, not have a 6th year, not have a 5th year.
Yeah.
So just congrats to those guys. Thank you for joining us and always participating. It means a lot to us. And I think because of your participation, Globe has really saw that and realized that we definitely need to do another year. It seems like that happens all the time. So it's great.
And every year we have an increase in IVSS projects that are related to this campaign. So that's great. I think the first year we had like less than a handful. We had like 3 or 4. And I think last year, or actually this year for 2024, for campaign participants that were focusing on tree height, land cover, and I'm not going to say greenings because a lot of the greenings ones are affiliated with the European Phenology Campaign, which we have a tie to, of course, but we're not going to take credit for those. We're going to let them do that because they do a lot about that. So with that said, we had over 24, maybe close to 30 that had to do with the campaign this year for IVSS 2024. So we're super excited to see that the numbers go up all the time. The numbers go up, and as you saw with the metrics, the number of observation goes up every year with the campaign. So we have less than a month to go for the data, and I don't remember. Let me look at it real fast here. We are closing in. We're not quite there yet. Last year, for year 5, we had 42,112 measurements come in during that time. Right now, we're at almost 37,000, so it's going to be close, but our trend has gone up. First year, we had 23,128, all the way through to last year, 42,112. So it's gone up every year. It only went up like 70 between year 3 and year 4. So that was pretty close. So we're pretty consistent, but hopefully we can break that 42,112 number for year 6 and then have, break that 50,000 mark for year 7. But yeah, so everyone, please, if you can, join the Globe Observer Connect on Thursday. That is at 12 noon. That is also 4 p.m. UTC or 6 p.m. Central European Summertime. So European Summertime. Yeah. So thank you all for 6 years of awesomeness and a great campaign. So we're looking forward to year 7 beginning October 1st. We won't have our webinar October 1st, but we will have it in October. Stay tuned for that, and also stay tuned for this recording of the recording of this webinar. I will send an email out, as I always do, once it is up on the webinar page for the campaign, and then you can view it. And it's great because we get thousands of views on every one of our webinars. They can watch it. You can watch it directly on the webinar page, or you can actually click on the little YouTube link and watch it on YouTube. Okay, so you can view it both ways. It's easier, I think, on YouTube. A lot of people just watch it in the webinar page, but on YouTube you can make it basically your whole screen, and it looks a little better. But yeah, feel free to check some of those past webinars out. So once again, thank you all, and here's to a great 6 years so far, and we are looking forward to year 7. Take care, everyone, and be safe.